The large meeting room at the Galactic Research Institute buzzed with quiet conversation. Scientists from dozens of different worlds sat in curved chairs, their various forms creating strange shadows under the bright lights. At the front of the room, Dr. Vextari adjusted his presentation device with one of his forearms, while his scaled face showed clear excitement. "Fellow researchers," he began, his voice carrying through the translation devices, "what I am about to show you will challenge everything we know about possible life forms." The holographic display flickered to life, showing wave patterns and data streams. "For the past 6 months, we have been receiving transmissions from a small planet in the Outer Rim. The inhabitants call their world Earth and themselves humans." A few scientists shifted in their seats. New species discoveries were common, but rarely worth such dramatic presentations. "The problem," Vextari continued, "is that according to these transmissions, these humans display characteristics that our models say are impossible." He gestured, and the display changed to show a list of claims. "They say these creatures can survive in environments ranging from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They heal from injuries that would kill most species we know. They work together, in large groups, yet also fight terrible wars among themselves." Dr. Kylemorth, the institute director, leaned forward in his chair. His large insect-like eyes reflected the holographic light. "What makes you think these transmissions are real rather than fictional entertainment?" "That was my first thought, too," Vextari admitted. "But the mathematical patterns in their communication suggest real scientific knowledge. They describe technologies we recognize, physics laws that match our understanding, and astronomical data about their local star system that we can verify." The display showed more impossible claims. "They say humans create beautiful art and music while also building weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They form emotional bonds so strong that complete strangers will risk their lives to save each other." Whispers filled the room. Several scientists made gestures that indicated disbelief in their respective cultures. "This sounds like the fantasy stories our own children tell," said Dr. Mordain from her position near the back. "Perfect beings who can do anything." "Exactly my concern," Kylemorth replied. "These descriptions match the theoretical models for what we call an apex predator species, but those are mathematical impossibilities, not real creatures." Vextari nodded. "Which is why I recommend we assign someone to investigate properly. Either we will debunk these claims quickly, or we may have discovered something extraordinary." The room fell silent as Kylemorth considered. Finally, he turned to a young researcher sitting in the front row. "Nixandra, you will take this assignment. Consider it practice in separating fiction from reality." Nixandra felt her heart sink. Around the room she could see other scientists trying not to laugh. Everyone knew this was a joke assignment, something to keep junior researchers busy while the real scientists worked on important projects. "Yes, Director," she said, keeping her voice steady despite her disappointment. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the city of Seoul shook violently. Buildings swayed as the earthquake hit, sending people running into the streets. Glass fell from windows, and car alarms filled the air with their wailing sounds. Tae-woo felt the ground move under his feet as he ran toward the collapsed apartment building. His radio crackled with voices reporting damage across the city, but he focused on the scene in front of him. Smoke rose from the rubble where a 6-story building had fallen sideways. "How many people inside?" he asked the police officer, who had arrived first. "At least 30 families," the officer replied, his face pale with shock. "Maybe more." Tae-woo nodded and began organizing the growing crowd of volunteers. He had learned to take charge during his years in the Special Forces, but now he used those skills to save lives instead of taking them. "You three, help clear this debris from the entrance," he called to a group of young men. "You and you, help me set up a safe area for survivors over there." He pointed to an empty parking lot across the street. Within minutes, people who had never met before were working together like a well-trained team. Office workers in suits worked next to construction workers and students, all focused on the same goal. At the hospital, Dr. Minji had been operating for 8 hours straight when the earthquake hit. The building shook, but the backup power kept the lights on in the surgical suite. She continued working on her patient while her assistants steadied themselves against the walls. "Status report," she called out when the shaking stopped. "Emergency. Department is receiving multiple casualties," came the reply through the intercom. "All available surgeons are needed immediately." Minji looked down at her current patient, a car accident victim who would live thanks to her work over the past several hours. "Close for me," she told her assistant. "I need to get downstairs." For the next 3 days, she barely left the hospital. She slept for short periods on a cot in the break room, but mostly she worked. When other doctors collapsed from exhaustion, she kept going. When supplies ran low, she found ways to make do with less. The volunteers at the rescue site worked just as hard. Taewoo had not slept for more than 2 hours at a time since the earthquake hit. His hands were bloody from moving sharp concrete, and his voice was hoarse from calling out instructions, but he continued coordinating the rescue efforts. On the second day, they heard a voice from deep in the rubble. A young mother named Soo-young had been trapped with her baby daughter. The space around them was so small that only one person could reach them. "I'll go," Taewoo said immediately. "The whole thing could collapse," warned one of the structural engineers who had arrived to help. "It's not safe." "She has a baby," Taewoo replied, as if that explained everything. To him, it did. He crawled into the dangerous space, following the sound of the woman's voice. The concrete groaned above him and small pieces of debris fell on his back. Behind him, he could hear the other volunteers holding their breath. 20 minutes later, he emerged with the baby girl in his arms. The crowd cheered as he handed the infant to the medical team. Then he went back in for the mother. None of them knew that high above Earth's atmosphere, alien scanning equipment was recording everything. The watchers from the Galactic Research Institute had trained their instruments on the Korean peninsula, expecting to find normal creatures dealing with a natural disaster in predictable ways. Instead, they were seeing something that made no sense. These humans were risking their lives for complete strangers. They were working past the point of physical collapse. They were displaying coordination and cooperation that should have taken millions of years of evolution to develop. In her small office, Nixandra stared at the preliminary data with growing confusion. Either her equipment was broken, or she was watching the impossible made real. Nixandra rubbed her eyes with both hands as she stared at the data streams flowing across her multiple screens. 3 weeks had passed since she began studying Earth, and nothing made sense. The scanning reports showed technology levels that seemed to jump randomly. These humans had barely figured out how to travel between planets, yet they had mastered nuclear energy and created planet-wide communication networks. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself. "They should either be primitive or advanced, not both at the same time." Her supervisor, Dr. Thekmol, stopped by her workstation with his usual skeptical expression. "Still chasing your imaginary super species?" he asked, making no effort to hide his amusement. "Look at this," Nixandra said, pointing to her main screen. "They have weapons powerful enough to destroy their entire world, but they also send food and medical supplies to their enemies during natural disasters. They fight wars over resources, then spend enormous amounts of those same resources trying to heal their wounded enemies." "Sounds like bad fiction to me," Thekmol replied. "Probably some kind of entertainment program that got mixed in with real transmissions." But Nixandra had run the verification protocols dozens of times. The signals were definitely coming from a real planet with real inhabitants. She just could not understand what kind of inhabitants they were. Dr. Kyle Morth appeared at her workstation later that day, his large form casting a shadow over her equipment. "What is your progress report, junior researcher?" "Director, I believe we need to authorize closer observation," Nixandra said carefully. "The long-range scans are giving us contradictory information that requires more detailed study." Kyle Morth's compound eyes reflected the screen light as he examined her data. After several minutes of silence, he made a decision that surprised everyone in the department. "Very well. Deploy stealth probes to the planet's surface. Focus on areas with high technology concentration and recent geological activity." On Earth, Professor Jinwoo was working late in his climate research laboratory at Seoul National University. The earthquake 3 weeks ago had given him a chance to study how seismic activity affected atmospheric conditions, and the data was fascinating. But there were strange readings mixed in with the normal measurements. These electromagnetic signatures don't match any known natural phenomena, he said to his graduate student Yuna, who was helping him analyze the information. Yuna frowned as she looked at the patterns on her screen. They look almost artificial, like they're coming from some kind of advanced scanning equipment. That's ridiculous, Jinwoo replied, but his voice lacked conviction. What kind of scanning equipment could produce readings like these? Maybe military satellites, Yuna suggested. Testing new technology after the earthquake? Jinwoo made a note to contact his colleagues at other universities. If multiple research stations were picking up similar signals, it might indicate a broader phenomenon that deserved investigation. High above the Korean peninsula, 3 alien stealth probes moved through Earth's atmosphere like invisible ghosts. Their advanced sensors could detect everything from individual heartbeats to the molecular composition of the air, all while remaining completely undetectable to human technology. The probes had been programmed to focus on emergency response situations, since those would show how humans behaved under stress. What they found challenged every assumption in the Galactic Research Institute's databases. At a hospital in Busan, the probes observed Dr. Hirim working in the children's cancer ward. She had been on duty for 16 hours, but when a new patient arrived, a 7-year-old boy with severe injuries from a construction accident, she immediately began treatment without any sign of fatigue. The alien scanners measured her stress hormones, brain activity, and physical condition. According to everything they knew about biology, she should have been making mistakes by now. Exhausted creatures became sloppy and dangerous. But somehow, her performance was actually improving as the hours passed. How is this possible? Nixandra whispered as she watched the real-time data. Her body should be shutting down, not getting stronger. The probes followed emergency responder Soo-hyun as he worked at a chemical plant accident. Toxic gases had leaked from a storage tank, creating a danger zone that should have been impossible for any organic being to enter safely. But Soo-hyun put on basic protective equipment and went in anyway. The scanners showed that his body was indeed being damaged by the chemicals. His lung tissue was burning, his skin was developing blisters, and his nervous system was being affected by the toxic exposure. Any reasonable creature would have retreated immediately. Instead, Soo-hyun carried 3 unconscious workers out of the danger zone before finally allowing the medical team to treat his own injuries. When asked why he had risked his life for people he had never met, he looked confused by the question. They needed help, he said, as if no other explanation was necessary. The alien researchers began to realize they were not observing normal survival behavior. These humans seemed to have evolved completely backward. Instead of protecting themselves first, they protected others first. Instead of becoming weaker under stress, they became stronger. At a mountain rescue training facility, the probes watched. Teams of volunteers practiced saving people in dangerous conditions. Jimin, a paramedic, rappelled down a cliff face to reach a simulated injured climber. The scanning equipment measured wind speeds that should have made the descent impossible for someone of his physical build. But Jimin compensated for every gust of wind, adjusted his position for every shift in the cliff face, and reached the target location with perfect precision. His brain scans showed activity in regions that should not have been working together. He was simultaneously calculating physics, monitoring his emotional state, planning his next moves, and maintaining perfect balance. Their neural architecture is impossible, reported Dr. Vexistari when he reviewed the probe data. They are using multiple brain systems at the same time that should interfere with each other. Dawon, a communications specialist, demonstrated another impossible human trait during the mountain rescue exercise. She was coordinating between base camp, the rescue team, helicopter support, and medical personnel while managing equipment logistics and monitoring weather conditions. The alien scanners could barely track all the different information streams she was processing simultaneously. She is performing the cognitive work of 6 different specialists, Nixandra noted in her report. How can one brain handle that much data without making errors? But Dawon was not making errors. Every decision was correct, every communication was clear, and every calculation was accurate. She was doing it all while hanging from a rope on the side of a mountain, in weather conditions that would challenge most species just to survive. The most disturbing discovery came when the probes observed humans during their rest periods. Instead of recovering from their extreme efforts, they used their free time to plan how to help more people. They studied new techniques, trained for harder challenges, and developed better equipment. They are not just surviving impossible conditions, Dr. Keelmorth observed during the daily briefing. They are actively seeking out more impossible conditions to challenge themselves with. Nixandra had filled 17 data storage units with observations, and every single one contradicted basic biological principles. These humans were not just unusual, they were behaving in ways that evolution should have eliminated millions of years ago. "Director," she said carefully, "I recommend we prepare for direct contact protocols. These beings may represent something we have never encountered before." The room fell silent. Direct contact was reserved for species that posed significant questions about the nature of life itself. It had been authorized only 12 times in galactic history. Keelmorth studied the data for a long time before responding. "Continue observation, for now, but prepare the contact team. If these readings are accurate, we may be dealing with something that requires special attention." The emergency session at the Galactic Research Institute had been called at short notice. Scientists hurried into the main conference room, many still carrying data tablets and research notes from their interrupted work. Dr. Keelmorth's urgent message had been simple: major development in the human investigation. Attend immediately. Nixandra stood at the presentation console, her nervous energy visible in the way she kept adjusting her equipment. The past month of observations had produced results that challenged everything they thought they knew about biology, but now the Institute had authorized something unprecedented: a deep biological scan of living humans. "The target location has been selected," she announced to the gathered scientists. "A mountain rescue operation in the region humans call the Himalayas. Multiple subjects will be present, including the individual designated as primary subject, Alpha, the one called Tewu." Dr. Vextari shifted in his seat. "Remind us why this particular human was chosen for intensive study. He has consistently displayed the most extreme examples of the impossible behaviors we have documented," Nixandra replied. "Leadership capabilities that exceed his training, physical performance that defies his biological scans, and decision-making, patterns that prioritize group survival over personal safety." The holographic display showed a detailed map of the scanning target area. "The rescue operation involves multiple humans trapped in an avalanche at high altitude. Atmospheric pressure and temperature conditions should make complex rescue work nearly impossible, which makes it perfect for observing human capabilities under maximum stress." High in the mountains, Tewu checked his equipment one final time before beginning the descent toward the avalanche site. The storm that had triggered the snowslide was still active, with winds strong enough to knock a person off the cliff face. Most rescue operations would wait for better weather, but the trapped climbers did not have time to wait. "Temperature is minus 37 degrees, reported Jimin, the medical specialist on the team. His breath formed ice crystals in the thin air as he spoke. "At this altitude and in these conditions, human body heat will be depleted rapidly." "Then we work fast," Tewu replied, beginning his rappel down the steep slope. Behind him, Dawan monitored communications while managing the complex rope systems that would allow them to haul survivors back to safety. None of them knew that directly above them, invisible alien scanning equipment was tracking their every movement, heartbeat, and brainwave. In space, Nixandra watched the readings with growing amazement. "Initiate deep biological scan," she ordered her technician. "Full spectrum analysis on primary subject Alpha." The scanning beam, invisible to human senses, penetrated through Tewu's clothing and equipment to analyze his body at the cellular level. Within seconds, alarms began sounding throughout the alien research ship. "That cannot be correct," Nixandra said, staring at her readouts. "Run the scan again." The results were identical. According to the deep scan, Tewu's muscle density was 3 times higher than it should be for someone of his apparent build. His cardiovascular system was operating at efficiency levels that the alien computers marked as physically impossible. His lung capacity and oxygen processing were so advanced that he should have been able to survive in environments that would kill most known species. Maybe our equipment is malfunctioning, suggested the technician. Scan the other subjects, Nixandra ordered. Jimin was rappelling down to reach the first trapped climber when the avalanche debris shifted. A huge block of ice broke loose and tumbled toward him. Any normal being would have been crushed instantly. Instead, Jimin twisted his body in mid-air, used his climbing tools to redirect his swing, and landed safely on a narrow ledge barely wide, enough for his feet. The alien scanners measured reaction times that exceeded their instrument's ability to track precisely. His nervous system is processing information faster than our sensors can measure, reported the technician in a voice filled with disbelief. But the real shock came when they scanned Jimin's injury response. A sharp piece of ice had cut through his protective gear and sliced open his arm. The wound was bleeding heavily, and at this altitude and temperature, blood loss would normally be fatal within minutes. The alien equipment watched in fascination as Jimin's body immediately began compensating. His heart rate increased not from panic, but from a controlled physiological response that redirected blood flow away from non-essential systems. His brain released chemicals that enhanced his focus and pain tolerance, while maintaining his cognitive abilities. He is not just surviving the injury, Nixandra reported to her team. His performance is actually improving because of it. Darwin's scan results were equally impossible. While coordinating the rescue operation, she was simultaneously tracking weather patterns, calculating load stresses on their equipment, monitoring the physiological status of her team members, maintaining radio contact with base camp, and making complex mathematical calculations about rope angles and anchor points. "Show me her brain activity," Nixandra requested. The holographic display revealed neural pathways that should not exist. Darwin's brain was using regions that typically handled different functions. Visual processing centers were helping with mathematical calculations, memory centers were assisting with real-time coordination, and emotional regulation systems were enhancing her logical decision-making. It is as if her entire brain has been rewired for maximum efficiency, observed Dr. Vextari. But that kind of neuroplasticity should take millions of years to evolve. The most disturbing discovery came when they focused the deep scan on Taewoo as he reached the first trapped climber. The victim was unconscious and badly injured, buried under heavy snow and ice. Extracting him would require enormous physical strength and precise coordination. As Taewoo began the rescue, the alien scanners detected something that made their computers issue critical alerts. His stress hormones were not triggering the usual fight or flight responses that every known species displayed under extreme pressure. Instead, the chemicals in his bloodstream were enhancing his cognitive abilities, increasing his physical strength, and improving his coordination. "This is impossible," Nixandra whispered. "Stress should degrade performance, not enhance it." But the evidence was undeniable. As the rescue became more difficult and dangerous, Taewoo became more capable. When a second avalanche threatened the rescue site, he did not panic or flee. Instead, he calculated the safest route to move the injured climber, coordinated with his team through hand signals since radio communication was blocked, and executed a complex evacuation plan that he appeared to be improvising in real time. The Tao alien researchers watched him carry the unconscious climber up a near-vertical cliff face in conditions that would challenge their own mechanical equipment. When Jimin's injury threatened to leave him stranded, Taewoo immediately abandoned his own safety to help his teammate. "He is prioritizing group survival over personal survival," noted the technician. "Every evolutionary model says this behavior should have been eliminated by natural selection. Unless," Dr. Vextari said slowly, "group survival is their survival strategy." The deep scans continued as the rescue operation progressed. Every human displayed the same impossible characteristics: enhanced performance under stress, cognitive abilities that exceeded their apparent neural architecture, and physical capabilities that defied their biological structure. When Darwin was forced to make a dangerous rope swing to reach a second group of trapped climbers, the scanners measured forces that should have torn her arms from their sockets. Instead, Her musculature adapted in real time, distributing the stress load across multiple muscle groups in ways that seemed to violate basic physics. Their bodies are rewriting themselves during the scan, reported the confused technician. The cellular structure is actually changing as we watch. As the rescue operation concluded successfully with all trapped climbers safely evacuated, Nixandra reviewed the complete scan data. Every measurement confirmed the same impossible conclusion. These humans were not normal biological entities. "Director," she reported to Kyle Morth over the communication link, "I recommend immediate escalation to first contact protocols. These beings represent something entirely outside our understanding of possible life forms." The silence from the director lasted for several long minutes. When he finally responded, his voice carried an emotion that Nixandra had never heard from him before. "Fear. Continue observation, but do not engage. I am calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council. If your scans are accurate, we may be dealing with something that requires special precautions." The main computer systems at the Galactic Research Institute had been running calculations for 72 hours straight, and they were still not finished processing the human scan data. Dr. Kyle Morth stood in the center of the primary analysis chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that showed biological readings from dozens of human subjects. Every screen told the same impossible story. "Status report," he called to the team of scientists working frantically at their stations. "The deep scans have been verified multiple times," reported Dr. Vextari, his voice tight with stress. "We have confirmed similar readings from observation, posts monitoring humans on every continent of their planet. This is not isolated to one population or region." Nixandra looked up from her workstation, where she had been comparing human biology to every known species in the galactic database. "Director, I have found the closest match in our records. Show me." The main display changed to show a theoretical, biological profile that most scientists recognized immediately. It was from their textbooks on impossible evolutionary development. The humans match 94% of the characteristics for a theoretical apex predator species, Nixandra announced to the stunned room. They display all the primary markers: enhanced strength, accelerated healing, superior coordination, improved cognitive function under stress, and pack hunting behaviors adapted for complex social cooperation. Dr. Kyle Morth felt his blood temperature drop. Apex predator species were mathematical models, theoretical constructs used to explore the absolute limits of what evolution could theoretically produce. Every civilized species had these models in their databases, but they were labeled as impossible. Nature could never actually create such beings. "Continue monitoring all observation posts," he ordered. "I want real-time data from humans engaged in every possible activity type." On Earth, Professor Jinwoo had finally convinced his government colleagues to take his electromagnetic readings seriously. The patterns were too consistent and too complex to be natural phenomena, and they were appearing simultaneously at research stations around the world. "The signals are definitely artificial," he explained to the emergency committee that had been assembled in Seoul. "And they are focused on areas where humans are engaged in rescue operations, medical procedures, and other high-stress activities." His graduate student Yuna had been working with international colleagues to map the signal patterns. "We think someone is scanning us," she reported. "The electromagnetic signatures match theoretical models for advanced biological scanning equipment." "Scanning? Us for what purpose?" asked the committee chairman. "We don't know," Jinwoo admitted, "but whoever is doing it has technology far beyond anything we have developed." The committee members exchanged worried glances. First contact with an alien civilization was supposed to happen through careful diplomatic channels, not through unauthorized surveillance. "Prepare a response team," ordered the chairman. "If we are being observed, we need to be ready for contact." Meanwhile, the alien observation posts were recording human activities that continued to defy explanation. In the Arctic, researcher Minsu was conducting climate studies in temperatures that should have frozen his blood solid. The scanning equipment showed that his body was generating internal heat through metabolic processes that violated known biological laws. "He is thriving in conditions that would kill most of our species," noted the technician monitoring the Arctic station. "His cognitive performance is actually improving in the extreme cold." At a deep-sea research facility, Marine biologist Yunji was diving to ocean depths that should have crushed any organic being. The pressure at those depths was equivalent to having several alien spacecraft stacked on top of a single individual. But Yunji's body was adapting in real time. Her lung capacity was changing, her blood chemistry was adjusting, and her bone density was increasing to handle the crushing environment. She was not just surviving, she was collecting scientific samples and making observations with perfect clarity. "This is not normal adaptation," reported the underwater observation team. "Her biology is rewriting itself as we watch." The most disturbing reports came from the Space Observation Post, where they were monitoring astronaut candidate Haeun during her training. She was preparing for environments that were completely hostile to organic life: vacuum conditions, radiation exposure, and zero gravity that would disorient most beings. Instead of being challenged by these conditions, Haeun seemed to welcome them. Her training scores were highest in the most dangerous simulations. When equipment failed and created life-threatening situations, her performance improved rather than degraded. "She is actively seeking out conditions that should kill her," reported the Space Station Observer, "and she is treating them as enjoyable challenges." Back at the Institute, Dr. Vexistari was analyzing the psychological profiles that emerged from the collective scanning data. "Director, I believe I have identified the most significant anomaly." "Explain." "These humans do not just survive in impossible conditions. They actively create impossible conditions for themselves. They engage in activities they call extreme sports that serve no survival purpose except to challenge their own limitations." The holographic display showed images of humans jumping from great heights with only fabric wings, diving into frozen water for recreation, and climbing vertical rock faces without safety equipment. "They are voluntarily exposing themselves to lethal danger," Vexitari continued, "and they appear to enjoy it. Their brain chemistry during these activities shows patterns associated with pleasure and satisfaction. That is evolutionary suiciding," observed Dr. Kelmorth. "No successful species would develop such behaviors. Unless," suggested Nixandra, "challenging impossible conditions is how they stay strong enough to survive real threats." The observation data supported this theory. Humans who engaged in dangerous recreational activities showed superior performance when faced with actual emergencies. It was as if they were constantly training themselves to handle situations that would destroy other species. The most shocking discovery came from the medical observation post. Dr. Hyeram was treating patients in a children's hospital where several young humans had been injured in an accident. The alien scanners were measuring her emotional response to seeing suffering in her own species' offspring. "Her stress hormones are off the charts," reported the medical observer. "But instead of fleeing or becoming aggressive, she is becoming more focused and more skilled." The scan showed that Hyeram's brain was releasing chemicals that enhanced her cognitive abilities, steadied her hands, and improved her decision-making. Seeing others in pain was making her better at helping them, not worse. "This makes no sense," muttered Dr. Kelmorth. "Pain and suffering should trigger self-preservation responses, not enhanced performance." But the evidence continued to accumulate. Sangwoo, a wildlife rehabilitator, showed the same response when treating injured animals. His biology improved when he was helping creatures that provided him no survival benefit whatsoever. He was risking disease, injury, and exhaustion to heal beings from completely different species. "They form emotional bonds with everything," reported the wildlife observation team, "not just their own kind. Plants, animals, machines, even abstract concepts. This human protects and cares for creatures that could never help him in return." Nayeon, a kindergarten teacher, displayed identical responses when working with children who were not biologically related to her. The alien scanners detected the same neurochemical patterns that other species showed only when protecting their own offspring. "She is treating unrelated young as if they were her own biological descendants," noted the education observer. "This level of social cooperation should be impossible to maintain in a competitive environment." As the data accumulated, a terrifying picture began to emerge. These humans were not just surviving in conditions that should kill them, they were thriving in those conditions while simultaneously protecting and nurturing others. Director, Nixandra said quietly, I believe we need to consider the possibility that we are observing a species that has evolved beyond our current understanding of biological limitations. Dr. Kilmorth reviewed the collective data one more time. Enhanced physical capabilities, impossible cognitive performance, stress responses that improved rather than degraded function, and social cooperation that extended beyond their own species. Begin preparation for formal contact protocols, he ordered, but maintain maximum safety precautions. If these readings are accurate, we may be dealing with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Dangerous? Asked Vextari. Think about it, Keelmorth replied grimly. A species with apex predator capabilities, enhanced performance under stress and social cooperation strong enough to risk their lives for complete strangers. What happens when they discover they are not alone in the universe? The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in 300 years. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in the massive chamber, their various forms creating a strange assembly of shapes, sizes, and colors. At the center of the room, Dr. Keelmorth stood before the holographic displays showing human biological data that had crashed every computer system in the Research Institute. Council members, he began, his voice carrying through translation. Devices to every species present. What we have discovered on the planet called Earth represents either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat our galaxy has ever encountered. The displays showed scan after scan of impossible human capabilities. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, cognitive abilities that improved under stress, and social cooperation that defied evolutionary logic. These beings match theoretical models for apex predator species, Keelmorth continued. But unlike our mathematical models, they actually exist. Worried murmurs filled the chamber in dozens of different languages and communication methods. On Earth, the international response team had assembled in Seoul. Taewoo led the military coordination while Dr. Minji headed the medical preparations. Professor Jinwoo and his student Yuna had been placed in charge of developing communication protocols, working with linguists and scientists from around the world. The electromagnetic signals have changed, Yuna reported during the morning briefing. Instead of passive scanning, we are now detecting what appears to be active communication attempts. What kind of communication? Asked Taewoo. Mathematical sequences, scientific constants, and what looks like pictographic representations of our solar system, Jinwoo explained. Someone is trying to establish that they understand our science and want to make peaceful contact. The team had prepared for this possibility. Following standard first contact protocols developed by the international community, they had chosen to respond with similar mathematical and scientific information, along with basic representations of human biology and culture. Are we ready if they want to meet face-to-face? Asked Dr. Minji. As ready as anyone can be for something that has never happened before, Taewoo replied. High above Earth, Dr. Nixandra monitored the human communication attempts with growing amazement. They responded with mathematical proofs, scientific data, and medical information about how to safely interact with them. Medical information? Asked Dr. Vextari. They are providing data on their own biological hazards, diseases, atmospheric requirements, physical limitations. They are telling us how to avoid accidentally harming them during contact. Dr. Keelmorth studied the transmission data. They are more concerned about us hurting them accidentally than they are about protecting their own secrets. This is not typical behavior for a dangerous apex predator species. Director, Nixandra said carefully. I request permission to attempt direct contact. The bridge of the research vessel fell silent. Direct contact with an unknown species was the most dangerous step in xenobiology. If these humans really were apex predators, first contact could result in disaster. What makes you believe contact would be safe? Keelmorth asked. Because everything we have observed suggests they are more interested in protecting others than in protecting themselves, Nixandra replied. They consistently risk their own safety to help complete strangers. If they wanted to harm us, They would not be providing medical data to prevent accidental injuries during contact. After several hours of debate, the decision was made. A small contact team would meet with human representatives at a neutral location, an isolated area where both species could maintain safety protocols while attempting communication. The meeting was arranged for a plateau in the Korean mountains, far from populated areas but close enough for human transportation. Nixandra led the alien delegation, while Taewoo represented the human contact team. As the alien shuttle landed, creating a whirlwind of snow and debris, the human team maintained their positions without showing signs of fear or aggression. When the shuttle door opened and Nixandra stepped out in her environmental suit, Taewoo actually moved forward to offer assistance. "Careful," he said, gesturing toward a patch of ice that could cause her to slip. "The ground is uneven here." Nixandra stopped in amazement. The first words spoken by a member of the most dangerous theoretical species in the galaxy were a warning to protect her safety. The initial exchange was conducted through translation devices and basic gestures. Both species shared scientific information, cultural basics, and biological requirements. But the real revelation came when Dr. Minji arrived with medical supplies. "We brought emergency medical equipment," she explained through the translator, "in case anyone gets injured during the meeting." "You brought medical supplies to treat us?" Nixandra asked in disbelief. "Of course," Minji replied, looking confused by the question. "This is a dangerous environment for both of our species. If someone gets hurt, we help them. That is what civilized beings do." The alien contact team exchanged glances. Civilized beings did not typically concern themselves with the medical welfare of potentially hostile unknowns. As the meeting progressed, Jinwoo and Yuna shared human scientific achievements, including medical advances, agricultural techniques, and environmental protection technologies. But instead of keeping their knowledge secret for strategic advantage, they immediately offered to share everything with the alien visitors. "These medical techniques could help treat diseases in your population," Yuna explained, showing holographic displays of human surgical procedures. "We would be happy to teach them to your doctors." "You want to share your medical knowledge?" asked Dr. Vextari. "Why would we keep it secret?" Jinwoo replied. "If we can help reduce suffering for any intelligent species, that benefits everyone." The alien team was starting to understand that they had completely misinterpreted what they were observing. These humans were indeed apex predators, but they were apex predators who had evolved ethical constraints to match their deadly capabilities. "We must ask you a direct question," Dr. Kilmorth said through the communication link from orbit. "Your species has the biological capability to dominate other forms of life. Why do you not do so?" Taewoo considered the question carefully before responding. "Having the ability to harm others does not mean you should use that ability. True strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. But your survival would be easier if you eliminated competing species." Kilmorth pointed out. "Survival is not just about staying alive," Dr. Minji interjected. "It is about preserving what makes life worth living. A galaxy where the strong destroy the weak is not a galaxy worth surviving in." The alien observers realized they had discovered something unprecedented, a species that had become more ethical as it became more powerful, rather than less ethical. Over the following weeks, as contact continued and expanded, the evidence became overwhelming. Humans were sharing their technology freely, offering medical assistance to alien visitors and proposing cooperative scientific ventures. Yunji worked with alien marine biologists to develop better ocean conservation techniques. Minsu collaborated with Ice World researchers on climate adaptation strategies. Haeun began training with alien astronauts for joint space exploration missions. Sangwoo established the first interspecies animal rescue program, working with alien wildlife experts to protect endangered species across multiple worlds. Nyan developed educational exchange programs to help alien children learn about different cultures and species. Soo-hyun trained alien emergency responders in human-style disaster response, techniques that prioritized saving as many lives as possible rather than minimizing risk to the rescuers. They are not just sharing knowledge, reported Nixandra during her final briefing to the Galactic Council. They are actively working to improve conditions for species they have never met before. Dr. Keelmorth reviewed months of contact data before delivering his conclusion. Council members, we have discovered something that our models indicated was impossible, an apex predator species that evolved into apex protectors. Explain, requested the council chairman. Every capability that makes them dangerous, their strength, their intelligence, their ability to cooperate in large groups, their enhanced performance under stress. All of these characteristics exist, alongside an equally powerful drive to protect and help others survive and thrive. The holographic displays showed human rescue workers training alien emergency teams, human doctors sharing medical techniques across species barriers, and human scientists collaborating on projects to improve life throughout the galaxy. They are not just capable of cooperation, Keelmorth continued. They are incapable of not cooperating. Their biology drives them to protect and nurture other forms of life, even at personal cost to themselves. The final revelation came when the council asked what humans wanted in return for all their assistance and shared knowledge. We asked them that question, reported Nixandra. Their response was that they wanted to learn about other species so they could help protect and preserve alien cultures and environments. They want to help preserve our cultures? Asked the council chairman. They explained that diversity makes the galaxy stronger, Nixandra replied. They believe that every species has